What's up guys, Gary here for GenVFX. Welcome to our new tutorial 80 in a series that's been going on now for quite some time. Today we're going to be talking about rigging, but specifically Rigify, because it's great. I mean, I'm not going to deny it's great. Rigify is brilliant once you have your lovely controlling skeleton. But to get to that skeleton point, there are some do's and don'ts that you should have. Well, it's mostly do's, really. So I have a little figure that I created a while ago. Actually, not long ago, actually. It was basically just, literally just a modeling test, just to see, because I don't really do a lot of character stuff. I don't consider myself much of a character person. I can animate, but I don't like trying to build people because I'm not very good at muscle structure, as is very evident here. But this isn't about me. This is all about Rigify. So let me just get here into get out of the modeling, get into the layout. There we go. And I have myself here a little fella and a light. Let's just get rid of that light. I'm going to leave the floor. It's always nice to have a floor to see what you're doing with. Proportionally, it's reasonably okay. It's not brilliant, but the point is, we need something about human height, so that we can use Rigify. So if you don't know about Rigify, basically in your preferences over here, go in here, and if I just type in Rigify, you can see there's one there called Rigify. Now it hasn't been enabled in this one yet, so you basically go click to enable it, and then there's documentation which you can get, which is obviously on the website for Blender. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes you do feel a bit like, well, am I missing something? Yeah, I think there's stuff in here that is a little bit missing, but it's not that it isn't there. It's just sometimes it can be a bit difficult to get to. So let's come back here. I've now turned on Rigify. I don't need to set any feature sets. This is literally as it comes in. I'm just going to save the preferences though, even though they're set to autosave, because I'm like that. And then basically what we need to do is go add armature, that's right, and we have all of this stuff that's kind of sort of appeared, the meta rig, then we have animals, so we have the bird, cat, horse, shark and wolf, and then the basic one which is basic quadruped and a basic human. Now obviously, so I'm just going to do here the basic character. Now I'm just going to do something else. I'm just going to go back in history here. I'm just going to reset my origin point of my cursor, sort of back to the origin point, Shift S, and I'm going to go cursor to world origin, so that when my rig comes in, it comes in the right place. That's your first do. Always make sure that your cursor is at the world origin, or at least literally right in the middle of where your character was created. This is created using, or with polys obviously, but created using a mirror modifier. And so therefore I know that that point being in the actual slap bang middle of the world space is exactly in the middle of my character, which always helps. Let's get back to the Rigify. So let's go add armature, basic human, bang, right in the right spot, and we can almost see what we're doing. It's nice to be able to see the rig, all of the rig, and what we can do here is our second do is go to visibility, go to viewport display and click on in front. Now by doing that, you can, no matter where you are, you can always see your bones. That is just slightly useful. Now, just a little point that's very important to make it, to make obvious right now. You have bones and you have joints, and each of those are not the same. So a joint is at the top, and then the bone goes to there, and then that leads down to another joint. So if I click on this, I've isolated the bone in that joint, but that joint and that joint, in theory they are the same, which is good. Because if they're not, sometimes you find that certain things are not actually properly connected, and that's one of the problems. One of the little problems with Rigify is not that you can tell. It's probably these telltale lines are a bit of a giveaway. They're link lines, so they can see that if anything happens to this, it also therefore happens to this joint as well, because joints don't have to be physically connected to be connected. However, this one particular joint up here is in fact 2 joints, just to confuse you. I'll come back to that one because that's one of the don'ts. Because Rigify, as wonderful it is, can break. So that's kind of important that we don't break the rigging setup. But it's very easy to do it. So I can see all of my rig. Now I've got to make it all match up to my mesh. So it goes in certain places because this isn't actually the rig you're going to be using. No, the meta rig, the way Rigify works is you place all your bones on your joints where you want them to be in your character. You then generate a rig. Yes, that's right. You hit a button and that will generate you a rig, which granted is wonderful. It's got full IK on the legs and the arms. It also has full FK, which is just standard forward kinematics. If you've never done any IK before or any FK, basically FK is so let's crack on. So here we are, here's our little character, and I'm going to go to the front view by pressing 1, and I want to reposition this arm and this arm. I want these to be repositioned so they match and follow the line of this. I can actually do by rotating, but if I rotate this, it kind of rotates that bone only, so that's a bit of a pain. I can, of course, select all of these and rotate them all at the same time, and that's what we're going to do, but you notice nothing happened on the other side. Here's your next do. Up here, let me just pop that view away, let's put item in there. Up here we have a little, what looks like a butterfly, but in fact it's a mirror of one butterfly wing and the word X. I'm going to click that. The reason is because then when I do this, and I do to this side, it happens to the other. This is one of the most important do's when you're doing anything with rigs, because predominantly when you build a character, you build them mirrored. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this, I'm going to move this joint here, and we're going to press G, and we're going to move this up to here. And then I'm going to take this joint here. I'm going to just shift it down a little bit. So just adjust that there. And you'll notice, as I said, that if we look on this side, everything I do here is mirrored over there. So that's great. So I can take that wrist bone, move that to there, take the hand bone, move that to there. And then we can start saying, right, well, that chest bone, just push that a little bit up. There we go. And this other part of the clavicle, let's bring this down. There we go. And this one here, let's bring this over here slightly so it's a bit higher, because that's basically our shrug joint, if you think about it. And now I'm going to come down here, and pretty much most of this is sort of feels a little bit more accurate, but our bum's a bit lower, so I've just swiped over all of those, and I'm bringing those down. And let's take this. In fact, let's just take all of that there. Let's move all of that across to here, because the legs are pretty straight. And I'm just going to take this joint here and just move this one out a tad, maybe down a touch. And I'm going to go now into my top view, and let's adjust this arm. Again, don't forget whatever I do here, happening on the other side, still the same mirror. Push that over here. I'm going to bring this in somewhat, but not all the way, because it's an elbow. We need to have a bend in it. Otherwise the IK doesn't work. And the same here. Just bring this over here. Yeah, if you, by the way, if you're creating, going to be creating IK, obviously you need a secondary bone. If you're doing it by hand, you've got a secondary bone which you place as your controller, which is basically drives the IK. But if you don't have a small bend in the joint that you're starting with as your root, and the one which is going to be your control joint, which you'll be manipulating, that will not have a proper angle for it to bend. It won't know which direction to go in. So always make sure there's a bit of a bend in that. So that's the hands, as it were. I might just take this out a tad more. Pressing 3, so I'm now viewing this from the side, and we can start to establish what we're doing over here. Again, same thing. Let's get the knee, bring it in. Let's take these. Let's move all of these back to here. And basically with these, you've got the heel, which is this joint here, which is pretty much on the nose, or on the heel, to be more of a point. And I'm going to move that back a touch, and that there, because that's our toes. And I can live with all that. I'm going to bring these forward a little bit. Now, again, we have now got those zippy lines. So zippy lines means it's a linked joint. It's still connected to the joints and it's influenced by the joints, but it's not directly connected to the joints. Now these we have to be careful with, because sometimes you pick one and you'll find that's fine, I'm only picking one, that's fine. But is it? No, it's not, because that one, if you look, even though it's mirrored, it's moved that joint away from the other one. And that is the issue, because they need to be right on top of that spline point. Spine point. Spline point? So that point, because that has to be on the spine, because otherwise the calculations that are done by Rigify to build your rig will fail. And I know it sounds ridiculous. You've got to be just a little bit more careful with these things. Otherwise it'll say, I can't do that because somebody digga do that isn't in the same position as a zippity doo dah. So you've just got to be a little bit wary of that. I'm going to just move some of these joints up a tad here. I think I'm just going to select them and move them back, because spines are a bit further back than this. And let's move that back to there. And this is the one that I worry about more than anything, because if that joint moves away from that point, it will automatically break the rig, so you have to be very careful. Let's bring this and put this here. I'm going to get the head joint here. I'm going to move this to there. Let's move that up to there a little bit. Let's set this just to there. He's leaning forward slightly. His neck should have been a bit further back, I think. That was me away from the mic, sorry, just as I was trying to do the shape that his body should have been. So now we've kind of got ourselves our rig, at least so far. So what we need to do now is we need to basically calculate and build our rig. So I'm going to very quickly save this as, and it's called man.blend, so let's call it man pre-rig. Pre-rig.blend. And I'm going to first of all make our rig. So let's go onto our little man. So for here, and you'll see in here we've got basically a set of layers, and each one of these is indicative of the bone structures that are actually in here in this particular rig. You can see if I turn them on and off, if a single click will show you a single item. Yeah, you basically on the layers, you can just show each one in turn. The layer system is something I don't really use anymore, because I just don't seem to need to use it anymore. Now I've got collections in here, but it's still part of the Rigify setup, and that's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. So pose library legacy, oh, so sweet. The asset browser now has all the stuff that you can use. Basically, you can build poses and store them in the asset browser. So that's always useful. I'm going to click here, generate rig, and there it's done it. It's just done it, because everything we did when we were making the rig was absolutely spot on. We made sure that we only moved collections of joints, because you have to be sure. Let me do it this way. Let me show you what I mean. I think this is, because I know this now works. Let's go back to pre-rig territory. I am going to very quickly take this joint and I'm just going to move it back like that. Hang on. So those two on together. So if I now basically click on our rig, object mode, generate rig, error. You see, it just doesn't work. You've just got to be really careful about this. So let's go back again and just do this again. Generate rig. There you see. So we've now got our meta rig. Here's the thing you see. You can forget about this now. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm just going to turn it off. Our meta rig is not our rig. Our rig is currently barely visible, because I think I need to be in wireframe. There we go. And our rig, as you can see here, is relatively hidden. You can see some joints and bits here, but they're all shown pretty much as wires. Now this gives you, the thing about this is you've got all this lovely control. It's all down here, your rig layers, you've got this lovely control. And this base rig that's all nicely frozen, so everything's at 0, 0, 0, 0, is a wonderful thing to behold. You can turn off everything like this, and you'll see that these buttons that I'm turning off here they are controllers for everything. They're basically picks for all of these layers. So it means that if you want to make a tweak to the torso, you can just, when you're animating, you can just do that. You can have a little extra layer of control on the spine and the shoulders. Same here. So you want to turn on the IK for the left arm, it's there. If you want to turn on the FK, so the joints themselves, it's right there, and so on. It's running. At the moment, though, we're in object mode. If we're in pose mode, and we wanted to, in fact, it's pose mode, you'll notice that everything has changed color, so it's easier to view and easier to see for control purposes, which is always handy. So we've got elements that if we pick them, we can use them. So, for example, this red device here, watch this is the IK for the left arm. And as you can see, this is all working really nicely. But if we want to, we could use the FK, which is here, and we can then rotate this all over the place. And then what you have then is you have an FK-IK controller. So you can see, if I zoom in here, if you watch these blue bones, they're the actual base joints. They're being controlled by the forward and the inverse killimation. So it follows the inverse by standard, and you can turn it off, setting it to 1 to go and follow the forward killimation. So it is very, very good. It's very, very good. But the next thing, of course, is where the hell do I combine? And it's just, it always gets me. Where do I combine how do I pick my joints and my character? How do I do that? Well, you have to go into here, and this little button just here, this visible area, this one, which unselects all the other stuff. Yep, this one is our joint structure that is being driven by our FK. So if I'll give you a clue. If I just take the IK and I will go back into pose mode, which is what you have to animate in, and I move this up here, and let's take this and I'll move this down here. If I click on this, you can see it's moved those joints, you see. Now obviously we don't want to do that because we need those joints exactly where they are. So, but this little button, it's button 30. It's that one. So we've now got our bone structure, we've picked the little 30th one, and so we have our actual deforming rig, and we have our character. Now it's Control P to basically combine together to create automatic weights, which is fine, but there's an order to it. If I pick the skeleton and then pick the mesh, which would be great, Control P, it just gives you a parenting setup. What you have to do is make sure that you do things in the right order. So you pick the geometry and anything else you want to be deformed by the rig. You then pick the root, and then you go Control P, and there you get armature deform. I'm going to click on automatic weights because we haven't created any envelopes, but you can do that. You can create envelope weights. You can actually create vertex groups, and they have to have the same naming convention as the joint, and it will then just go, oh, that goes to there, no problem, which is a nice little thing. But we now have a mesh, which actually, if we go down to, if we just click on the mesh and go to weight mode, you can see that it's got all the armature stuff in there because it's just, that's picked one of the bones. We can pick them here from our vertex groups, which is good. It's very, very handy if you want to paint weights. Otherwise, what you can do is you can press Shift and right click, and it'll ask you which one do you want, and you can just select whichever one you want. If it's directly on top of it, it's fine, it'll work it out. It might not. For example, the weight of this one, you can see that is inaccurate, really. I want that to be right click, carry, and there you go. So, I mean, I know this is like, well, this is about Rigify, but it's a little bit more than that, I guess. So let's come out of the weight painting, come back here, because we've now got to basically show you very quickly how to use the rig. And again, this is do's and don'ts, I guess, but it is also about, you know, general usage. This, as I say, this one here on little button 30, which would be nice if it was numbered. That's your basic armature layer. But if each one of these little buttons here, these are indicative of every single part of your actual rig. So that's the IK on the right leg, that's the FK on the right leg, and that's tweaking on the right leg. That's the basically the chest, shoulders, head, waist. Those are tweaks for the chest, basically the spine tweaks. And then there is your left arm, and there's your left shoulder, and so on along the way. And basically you can either turn them all on here, because these buttons actually control each one of those little things, which is why when this comes on, when you first see it, you're like, ooh, that's lovely. And it is really nice. It's nicer even when you go into pose mode, because all the colors that are there are brought just beautifully to life. And everything is defaulted into IK. So when I was talking about IK before, if I take this is our IK handle for the arm. I can move that down. And let's take this one here, and I can move this one down. And it looks like he's about to do the Iron Man thing. Let's go to the front view, and let's put him into the Iron Man pose. Whoosh! Oh dear. Well, I say oh dear. Let me just put this to a view that you can see that hand. Obviously, the hand's a little bit too far forwards. So let's push that back there, and then push it down. Boom. So now you see why we had to have the bend in the IK. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the bend in the arm. Obviously, with the weights, you can go back and mess around a little bit, put a little bit more softness or a bit more influence in certain areas. What we normally have is that you go, you see there you go, see now I've got this one here. That there, it basically is the blend between the FK and the IK. And what you can do is you can hit a button like this, and that little button basically puts the FK exactly where the IK is, so you can do an animation takeover and then you control it with FK rather than IK. It's like they've thought of everything, isn't it? It's really clever, and it is so good. I'm just leave that on the IK. Let's push this over here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm the FK. There you go. Push this over here. Pull this down, and let's rotate that hand down, and let's rotate that one around as well. Remember, it's going by my view, not by the axis. If you want to do it with the axis, you've got to hit the controller. Just hit the controller. And oh, it's a very, very peculiar looking arm. Pop. There we go. The other one's doing the same. Pop. It is a stretchy IK as well, as you've probably seen. And that is also the same on the legs, as you can see. But you can turn that off, I think. And also, yes, you can. So if I pick this leg here and I overstretch it, you've got here your IK stretch, and you can just turn that down. Preferably, I find, to keep it off. So you're not going outside of the constraints of what the leg can actually do physically, unless you are going for a cartoon look. And then obviously we can get the body here, and we can bring this down. So you can see the IK and the FK doing all its funky things, because if it was on the FK, it wouldn't be a problem. Let's bring this one down. So you've got all this lovely control, and now you're done. I mean, all you've basically got to do now is do your animation and do something funky. I mean, alien. Not too sure about that. But yeah, so basically Rigify, actually, once you follow a few practical things, is absolutely flipping marvellous. And then it gives you something which you have complete control over and is really nice and quick and easy to animate to. Don't forget, when you're animating, you have to be in pose mode. You can view it all back in object mode, that's not a problem, but it needs to be in pose mode. I also recommend that you turn on the auto keying when you're animating, because that way, if you're down here and you say, right, okay, I'll just take this leg, move. Oh no, not that. Let's just take this leg. Let's move this leg back here. Let's move this leg forwards. I'm going to put my arms back in FK. Yeah, that's put these back the way they are. Should be X, Y, Z. Don't touch the W, it'll mess it all up. There we go. And then those are all keyed. So now if I go over here to say 30, I can bring this down here and move this forwards. And I can take this foot and push this over here. And you know, you've got a key there and then a key there because it's auto key, obviously. Whee! And so we could take this leg, for example, and lift it up, push it back. Let's just rotate it. So it's up, and then when it's there, rotate it back here. So it's dum, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. You just got a great rig. That's it, really. That's it. I'm done. We're done. What are you still around for? Have you got something more important to do? You must have something more important to do. I tell you, actually, you have got something more important to do. That's to like and subscribe. Because the more times you do that, the more times I can keep on doing this. And also, I mean, I love doing it anyway. That's it. All comments, again, of all types. You know me. I don't mind a bad comment. Sometimes they make me laugh. So keep commenting. Yeah, thanks, guys. Take care. Look after yourselves. And don't forget to comment, to like, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.